My guest today is Reverend Lynn Walker. Since her early teens, she studied many metaphysical topics, including astrology, the natural laws, vibrational energy, spiritual anatomy, and channeling under various teachers living and in the spirit world. A Reiki master since 1988, she holds a bachelor's degree in chemistry and an MBA. Ordained in 2003 after 7 years of study and an additional 10 years of personal growth, she started the Light of Our Being to answer her calling to help others on the path. Her books and classes aren't for everyone, but regardless, these works now need to be made public. The era of withholding spiritual knowledge is over. And so she is my guest today, and we are going to have a very interesting conversation. Welcome, Lynn.
Well, good morning. Thank you.
Well, I wanted to ask you a couple of things because a lot of people are still a little skeptical of the spiritual world, and interestingly, to have a degree in chemistry and an MBA to go in this direction is a little bit unique and different. So tell us a little bit about growing up. What were you like at school?
Well, I was everyone has that kind of friend that's just a little bit different. I was that one, and I had very different experiences as a child. I had out-of-body experiences. I could talk to my spirit guides, and I thought everyone could, but it turns out that they didn't. And when I was a child, my mother told me to stop doing that, simply because it was not something that she was comfortable with, and she was just protecting me.
Wow, that's very interesting. So out of that came this realization for you, but how did you get on the path in terms of what you studied in college? I mean, you had these experiences, and then you went on to study chemistry and get an MBA. So how did that all tie together?
Yes, that is rather left brain, isn't it? Since I was ordained, I turned into a very right brain person, and on my spiritual path, it was very, very important to me to marry together the concepts of science and the concept of metaphysics, because right now metaphysics is proving science.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, and very much so. And people are opening up, and they're becoming much more aware of what's going on, and they're becoming more into their God self, I'd like to call it.
Well, your first book, I guess, was, you're doing a book series, Wisdom from Spirit Guides, but you published your book on Amazon. The first of the series is on Amazon, and Create Space, and it was #1. So tell us about that, because you wouldn't think that, a book of that genre or talking about those things would go to #1, but it has. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the book contains excerpts from several channeled sessions that began in the mid-1980s. And the channeled sessions were ones that were done through Reverend Rose Wagers and myself, and she was one of my spiritual teachers. The channeled sessions included the cherub named Cornelius and two of my guides named Carmen and another one, Iris, and Dr. Wagner. Now, the spirit guides have a different take on our daily activities. For instance, they look at everything from wars to your own personal experiences. It's just an opportunity for growth and an expansion of our consciousness. But they have problems with our egos, and that is a major issue with them. And they call the ego, and I call it in the book, our predator. It's the predator that causes our misery on this earth plane, and according to them, the devil in the Bible is our ego.
Wow, well, we do have egos, that's for sure. I'm not sure
Yes.
we ever thought of it as the devil in the Bible, but we do have egos, and they do trip us up a lot of the times.
Oh, yes, they do, and it really is the source of all of our disappointments in life and a lot of the conflicts that we have on the earth plane.
So what are your ambitions for your writing career? I mean, you're having this book series, and I guess you've published the first one. How many books are in the series or will be in the series?
Well, I don't know an exact number at this point. my hope is to inspire people to pursue their own spiritual path and not to be afraid where it leads them, and to claim that connection to God, whatever they perceive God to be. But I want people to know that it's okay to change your spiritual views as you grow. And many people often do, and then others are afraid to because of family ties, because of the social nature of the church or the church environment that they belong to. And I want everyone to know that no matter what, God loves you. But I hope that people gain insight into their who they are as a person, that they are connected to God, and that God loves you no matter what. And that inner happiness that they're searching for will be achieved when they walk their true path.
So you evidently, I mean, you've done a lot of studying, of course, and you've been ordained. Which writers or what kind of writers inspire you?
Oh, I love Gary Zukav, and he's one that wrote Seed of the Soul, and Eckhart Tolle, The New Earth, Fritjof Capra, The Tao of Physics, and The Elegant Universe by Brian Greene. And the one that I recommend students to read is called The Kabbalion, and it's by the Three Initiates. And there's another one, Dan Miller, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. Those are the ones that I usually give to my students who are starting out. It gives them a perspective that there is life past what they see on a daily basis and what they experience. But one
Well,
of my first...
I read Dan Millman's book, and I shouldn't say I read it. My son gave me Dan Millman's book. I found it really tedious to get through. And maybe that was the way I was looking at it, or maybe I wasn't ready for it. But I know that he's a well-respected author in this field, and I found it difficult. So I'm not sure how that stacks up with the other people that you mentioned, but I particularly found that a difficult book to read.
Oh, well, why did you find it difficult or tedious?
I don't know. It just didn't resonate. I found it confusing, and it was, I like to read and get through it and understand it and so forth, but I did not do that with Way of the Peaceful Warrior.
Oh, that maybe that's something that needs a little bit of background.
Well, maybe, because I did read the next one you talk about, which is the autobiography of a yogi. Someone gave me that. It seems to be people give me a lot of these books. And I did read that, and I did read that with fascination. I'm not sure that I did comprehend it. I'm not sure I accepted all of it, but I did understand it. And I found that a much easier book to read.
Mm-hmm. Acceptance comes with experience. When you have experiences, you incorporate that into your being because that's part of yours. Not everyone is going to understand your path. And so it's important for you to experience as much as you can, and then your guides will give you a glimpse as to what is really going on. The tangible physical plane that we live on is not the real world. Spirit guides think of us as being dead. We think of them as being dead, which is kind of interesting. They talk about us being alive on the other side. On this side, we have a veil, and we don't understand what it is to be part of God. And that's what we're learning in this spiritual plane.
So what are you working on besides the next book of your series?
Well, I've got a beginning astrology for non-astrologers webinar coming up. I believe God gave us a map to navigate this incarnation, and this map is your personal astrology chart. And it's your free will to apply it as you want. Some people believe in astrology, some people don't, some people do not, but it's not a belief system. It works whether you use it or not. It's like saying you don't believe in Japan. It's there. If you want to go, you can go. But it does exist. And during the webinar, we're going to use everyone's personal charts to learn. I love astrology. It has more than 2 lines. It is much more than 2 lines in a newspaper column. There's so much depth to it. Everything that you've ever wanted to know about this incarnation is in your astrology chart.
Interesting. Well, now let's ask you some questions about when did you start to study astrology?
I started that when I was a child. I picked up my first astrology book when I was probably about 12 or 13. It was laying around, and I just decided to open it up simply because I was looking for a way to understand my dysfunctional family and my role in the madness that was going on at the time. And I was just totally captivated by it because it described all of my relatives, all of my siblings, to a T, and there was no getting
Wow.
around it.
Yeah,
There was
that's amazing. That's amazing. And it's amazing you started at 12. How did your study of science compute with astrology?
they're one and the same. Everything is energy, and if you can define that energy that you're working with, you have dominion over it. And there are several biblical passages that support that. You have, and everything is thought also, which is a hard concept to understand. And I think that's one of Dan Millman's issues in getting across the concept in his book. But when you're studying astrology, you understand all of the facets. It's an objective blueprint that you can use as you choose. You can see good times coming. You can see bad times coming. You can see your lesson in any difficult situation that you're in. And it helps mitigate a lot of the pain. It's your
Wow.
blueprint. It's your
Well,
blueprint.
so when did you decide to become a writer?
Well, that wasn't by choice. I never thought of myself as being a writer.
I
uh,
really do believe that everybody has a book inside them. I think that most people have a very interesting story to tell, and yet they don't really believe they can do it. So I'm not sure anybody really decides this is what I'm going to do. Maybe people who are, journalists and people like that do feel that way. But most people, I think, just think, they've got a book inside them, but they don't know how to get it out. So tell us what your decision process was there.
well, I didn't really have one. I learned a long time ago that I should listen to my guides. And I'm clairaudient, clairsentient, and clairvoyant. And I know that when they say do something, I don't question it anymore because sometimes I get spanked in the process. So they came to me one morning, actually a year ago, and they said, okay, we're going to start a series, get up. And so I knew not to argue, and I just got up, turned on the computer, and they literally dictated probably about 85% of the book to me in about 4 hours. I just sat there and typed.
Really? Because, I know a lot of authors. And I know, for example, one woman who has written 42 books. And she does a lot of research, but when she sits down and writes, she just writes. I know another person I know who goes away to like a cabin or a hotel room for a weekend and just bangs it out. It's amazing. So your ability to get it out in 4 hours through your spirit guides, that's absolutely amazing. But you also decided to do this publishing as an independent. So how does that work? Because those people who are listening who might be interested in writing their own book, they might want to know how to do this. Who edited your book? How did you select them? How did you get it published? All of that.
Well, I think there's a totally new platform for people that have that book inside of them that you were talking about. You have Amazon. There are several Amazon-like venues out there where you can put your book together, you can design your own cover, and you can get it out there and do your own marketing. And the marketing's the hard part, believe it or not.
Oh, I believe it. Nobody, that nobody likes to market. It's like in any business. People love the business, but they don't want to market or they don't know how to market. And it's the same thing. I don't care what your profession is. Most people think, well, if I do my particular skill well, people will just come to me. Well, that's not true. You could be the best whatever in town, and if you don't let anybody know about it, they're not coming.
Right, you're